Hi, everybody. I am Kathy Goodall.
And I am Genesis Etienne.
And we are
Focus at 40. Hello.
So I am a certified leadership and growth coach, trainer, speaker. I'm also a marketing strategist, a sociologist.
I am a licensed mental health counselor, a marriage and family therapist. Now we're YouTubers.
Yes, we are YouTubers.
And we are also, I'm a sociologist as well, podcaster, and overall badasses.
So last week we talked about our family and the influence and the impact that our families have on us and the different ways that they impact us. And we talked about some of the family baggage and, being able to assess the things that we want to keep from our families and the traditions that we've gotten, the roles that we've learned from our parents and other family members, and the ones that we don't really want to keep. And so today we want to talk a little bit about toxicity and toxic relationships. How do we identify them in our lives? And what are some of the things that we can do to release them and remove them from our lives? And so today I'm going to be interviewing.
Yay.
Jen.
Because it's so real, guys. Have you ever been around somebody that your spirit, it's so funny because in the Caribbean and Hispanic people, Black folks, the spirit don't take them, or they're espiritu, or they don't have the right chi or the right, and it's a shame that we're not all walking around happy and wonderful and, enlightened people, right? But since we're not all walking around happy and enlightened and enjoying our lives and making the most out of our lives, we do have to deal with toxic situations, toxic people, toxic friendships. And I feel as we go into this age and into this generation, I'm just like not with the shits, I'm just not really interested in having to deal too much with anything that is toxic because I do so much to keep.
So Jen, we're talking about toxicity, but I think maybe we should start with defining what is toxicity.
So toxicity is a person, place, thing, behavior that is disrespectful. It may make you feel worse about yourself, right? It's something that has the ability or the potential to have an effect on your self-esteem, right? Toxicity is the not feeling seen, not feeling heard by somebody or by something, right? It could be a job even. Mm-hmm. Extra critical, right? Something or somebody that is extra critical, negative overall, toxic, right? Yeah. Think about something that is toxic. Think about what, when you see the toxic signs or the poison signs, you don't drink that, right? Yeah. It's not good for your body. It can cause death or sickness and toxic relationships, toxic people, toxic workplaces,
situations,
can have the same effect on your body,
Absolutely. So how do we identify some of these toxic situations? I mean, you talked about feelings of insecurity, you get anxiety. We talked about insecurity, anxiety, feeling less than.
I know when something is toxic for me because I am drained. It physically and emotionally drains me. If I need to take a nap or have a drink after I hang out with you, or after I leave this workplace, or after I'm done dealing with this relationship or this friendship, then I know that it's not having a good effect, not only on my body, man, but like on my spirit, on my aura, on my mentals.
Yeah. So I mean? it's really abuse. I mean, it's mental abuse, it's emotional abuse and physical abuse. And so these are different ways that we identify how our situations or our relationships are toxic. And abuse can come in many forms. It can come from overexertion at work and not being compensated for it, or working outside of the expectations of what your actual role is consistently
to a fault.
Yeah. Right. So it's not something that, okay, you have a project and you're working overtime for 2 weeks. No, it's something that you are being badgered over and over and over consistently for extended periods. And same is true for relationships or situations. I mean, we all have bad days, right? So somebody screaming and shouting at you in one instance is not necessarily toxic, but when it's repeatedly done over and over and over, it becomes toxic. So what are some of the things that we can do? Or maybe we should talk about some examples of toxic situations.
Well, I feel like, if, and I think that toxic relationships or toxic situations can happen to anybody. Unfortunately, I feel like people in the helping professions, people who kind of wear their heart on their sleeves, empaths, People who are kind of, they're able to be with other people and they're able to take on the emotions of other people are especially vulnerable, right? Because me, for instance, right, using my background and just using who I am, I can look at somebody who is toxic and think to myself, oh man, maybe they didn't have like a sweet mother, or maybe they grew up in a house that was really abusive, or maybe they've never heard good things about themselves. So of course that's how they, right? And so I, as an empath and as a helper and as a therapist and as all these other roles that I play in my life, I can be especially vulnerable to people who are having a bad day. But having a bad day is different than, expressing a bad life. You know what I mean?
I think you made a good point that we need to acknowledge that toxicity isn't about us. So when we're in a toxic situation, it's not necessarily a reflection of us. It's a reflection of that person's level of toxicity. And we don't always have control over other people's actions
very
and
rarely.
their lives. We have control over ours. So how do we now identify that this is a toxic situation and move ourselves out of this space? Because women especially, we have this savior complex, right?
Some of us do, correct.
I know I'm guilty of that. So
accountability.
So many of us have this savior complex, and we feel like it's not even so much about thinking of it's not going to happen to me, but I am different and I can help this person through this situation. And we have to understand that unless that person wants to be helped, there's nothing that you can do to help them. They have to seek that help for themselves and want to be able to change for themselves.
We also have to understand that not everybody's our assignment.
Yeah.
I was not sent here from from God to save you, sir or ma'am. I was sent here. And if I'm on your path, right, if we happen to buck each other on our paths through life, then I hope that it's a wonderful thing. But I am not here to save you, and
the same is true for friendships.
Absolutely.
And family relationships.
Listen, some of the most toxic relationships you cannot avoid. Mm-hmm. I've sat through with clients that still have to sit in a room with their abuser because it's their father. And they have to live with that for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? So some toxic relationships we can't escape, but how then do we manage that, boundaries, right? And a lot of that is about boundaries and being assertive. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, how do you even know when something is toxic? How do you know when somebody is toxic for you?
Well, I think it starts with pattern of behavior, because if they're toxic to me, it also means that they have signs of toxicity in other areas of their life and other relationships. And sometimes we have rose-colored lenses when we're looking at situations from a perspective of caring and empathy. But there are people around you that we always talk about our advisory board, right? And our advisor board and the people that care about us usually can see these signs of toxicity before you do.
Absolutely.
Or outside of the time that you do.
Right.
And I think knowing that these people have your best interest at heart and being open to what they're saying helps us to be more open to identifying situations that we don't belong in. So, I have several examples of past relationships, friendships, intimate partner relationships that have been toxic for me. And signs of those were the fact that I'm a giver. And I realized that the people around me that were toxic were just takers, and they continued to take and take and take and give nothing in return. So that's one sign of toxicity. The people that are always taking from you. People that are always saying, or often, because it's not necessarily always, right? They give you just enough to say, oh, they said something nice and sweet to me today. But people who more often than not have unkind things to say.
Make you feel bad.
Yep. Backhanded compliments, things that are compliments that are actually backhanded. Like, oh, that dress is cute, but it's a little tight. Type of
I like
compliment.
It tight and right.
Or there's some people in your life that don't celebrate you, that don't encourage you. They always are critical of you and critical of the things that you do, when their first reaction is something that is negative. Those are signs of toxicity. And of course, there's degrees of toxicity, right? Some are more extreme than others, some you can ignore, but some have a real mental, physical, and emotional impact on us.
Absolutely. I always say, go where you are celebrated, not tolerated. If you are merely tolerated somewhere, and so I wrote down the question, what does toxic feel like for you? Right? Because for me, I go with my gut. You know what I mean? Again, if I feel anxious, if I have to pray to get through an interaction with you, that is good. That is not good for my soul. And I wrote down, right? Like, what are some of the things that people will make you feel so that because maybe you guys don't think you're in a toxic situation. Sometimes people don't actually know. Maybe, sometimes we're critical of ourselves. Oh, I wish I was, I wish I could be nicer to them, or I wish I didn't feel so bad when they're around. No. So somebody who around you who is insecure, jealous, negative. Is somebody constantly negative? You go around them and they want to gossip about people, or they want to talk about somebody, or they want to make fun of somebody. Is it purposeful? Is it positive? Somebody who is self-centered, selfish, right? Are all we're talking about is you today all the time? Is that the only thing we talk about when we get around each other? I can't. Okay. Somebody who is demeaning. Do they tell you wonderful things about you, or the minute they come around you, they're looking at, oh, you maybe have gained 5 pounds, or geez, you broke out in pimples, or that hair color doesn't really suit you, Somebody who is distrustful. You can't bring your friends around. You can't bring your money around. You don't want them in your house. Somebody who is abusive.
Disrespectful.
Somebody who you see is abusive, even maybe not even to you, but you can see, it's so funny. I remember somebody who I was really close to used to say, people are not a piece of crap in one area of their lives.
Yeah.
If you're a piece of crap, you're usually a piece of crap in multiple areas of your life. So if you see that this person is regularly cheating somebody, not good to their kids, nasty to other people, how do they treat the waiter at the restaurant? Right? That is a really good indication of who do you have around you that may not necessarily be good for your spirit, And the beautiful thing about being a child of God is that we are born with an internal compass that allows for us to detect in our spirits what is right for us and what is not right for us, So if somebody constantly brings up these feelings for you, if you feel incompetent around somebody, if you feel like maybe you're not doing a good enough job, if you feel like, damn, this person never has anything positive to say, but is always there to tell me how bad I did this, or how ugly was this, or this wasn't a good job, man, listen to your internal compass,
Yeah. And I think that so many of us mistake people's jealousy or displays of jealousy as love, and it's not love. Right? When Jen talks about insecurity, and it's also putting off into doing things to make you feel insecure. I remember I had a relationship once where I got into an argument with my partner at the time, because he gave a girl his number in front of me that he knew was trying to sleep with him for years, and then turned around and picked an argument with me. So it's his guilty conscience,
right,
that he's now taking out on me, so that I don't have a reason to react. I don't have a reason to be upset. He gets out the gate before me. Absolutely.
That's gaslighting. That's gaslighting.
And so you have a situation where you can't do anything right. And it's constant badgering, and it's constant reminder of the things that you're not capable of, that you're not good at, but yet still they're continuing to ask you to be present and to do things. If you're not doing anything right, then why do they still have you around?
They need you. I feel like people who are, yes, I feel like people who are toxic need you, because we're, right? Like all things, right? So I'm like a natural lover, right? I need a place to put my love. I put my love in my friends, into this work, right? I put my love into this podcast, right? And the same goes for toxic people. They need a place to put they need a place to spill, right? That sewage. And that goes from people to jobs, to their children, to their own ways about themselves. You know what I mean? It's terrible.
So I think that our next episode, we're going to do a deep dive into boundaries, and how do we set boundaries to prevent some of these toxic environments in our life, and how do we move from these toxic situations into something that is good for us, that nurtures our soul,
productive and beautiful for us. I was told by somebody who does not believe in therapy, and who does not believe in, just does not believe in that type of philosophy, that I was selfish. that I'm selfish for setting up boundaries, that I'm selfish for staying away from certain situations. And you know what? I had to take that selfish and change the end of it and make it self-full, right? Because if people are not for you, you have to be for you, you know? And so at some point in my life, and it happened like in the end of my 30s, I was like, you know what? This no longer is going to take up as much time in my life as it once did. And it's also not going to hostage my positivity and the things that I want in my light, right? I can't dim my light anymore because people are not ready to be illuminated by it. So you take your light someplace else.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant point. When you realize that your personality starts to shift and you start to become a recluse and you start to make excuses for why you don't want to be around the people that you love, when you start to pull yourself away from situations that normally nurture you because you're too ashamed or you're afraid or you don't want to hear the people that care about you tell you that the situation is bad for you, you know that you're not in the right place.
No, you know it, you know. Again, it goes back, you know, I've heard people say, well, you know, I thought it through or I felt it through. No, man, you got to guide it through, right? We as humans, we can think what we want. We can manipulate our thoughts, right? We can manipulate our heart. We can love hard and hate hard, but our gut is a primal, you know, and our gut is always going to tell us whether this thing is good or bad. And I really, you know, just recently, man, I had a situation that I walked into and I thought really strong and hard about it. And I was like, man, maybe I shouldn't do this. Yeah. And as I did it, it went wrong, you know? And so that is our God, right? Yes. I mean, that is our God talking to us, talking through us, right? Allowing us to really rely on our judgment, allowing us to trust ourselves, you know, and toxic relationships can take that away from us. It takes away our trust of ourselves, right? It keeps us critical of ourselves. It keeps us second guessing who we are and what we offer in our light and our passions and all of that. Not everybody's ready for the goodness, man. You know, absolutely. And that's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. But so then the point is to surround yourselves with people who are, right? For people who burn under your light, right? For people who get vitamin D from your sunshine, for people who revel in your accomplishments, for people who you revel with their accomplishments, you know, because that's a good, strong, solid community. Yep. Not only for yourself, but for your heart, for your spirit, you know, it's important. Last words are that toxicity comes in many forms. Even the stuff we're seeing on social media, you know, sitting there and feeding ourselves this feed all day of even toxic positivity. I was reading an episode on toxic positivity. This lady was talking about how all she goes on Instagram and all she sees are like people climbing mountains and saying, you know, this it's our one shot and all of these positive things all the time. And not everybody's in that space. You know, it's okay to have a bad day, you know, so don't feed yourself things that are hurting your soul, that are tugging at your emotions. And it causes comparison. It absolutely does. And that's toxic as hell too. You know what I mean? So definitely guard yourself, you know, go with your gut. If you know that something or somebody doesn't feel right, that's okay. That is your internal light bulb going off, you know? So trust yourself. And if you feel like somebody's insecure, jealous, negative, critical, disrespectful, abusive, selfish, become self-full and remove yourself as far as you can within your own parameters and boundaries from that. And don't listen to the haters. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think about the Bible when it tells us that you mustn't cast pearl before swine. And I think it's important for us to understand what that means. You know, you are a pearl and a pig doesn't know the value of a pearl. So when we know our value, we're not going to leave ourselves careless around people that don't. Around pigs. Yeah. So know your value. Oink, oink. Listen. So I am Kathy Goodall. I am Genesis Etienne. And we are Focused at 40. Have a great rest of your week, guys. Bye, guys.